Welcome to the Wednesday meditation. I mentioned many times that when Jack and I met, we had a destiny that we did not know that was going to be ours. We were so different, came together, and then we marched in Chicago. Jack was going to write what took place there in a film. And we hitchhiked. He borrowed his father's car and it broke down on the highway. And so we hitchhiked with a Russian who had paraphernalia in the back of the car and was like, what are we doing? And we got there and we stayed with a couple that were lawyers, a husband and wife. And we both came from very low income people. And these lawyers had gone through the whole schooling to become lawyers, and they were helping people that didn't have any money. And that so impressed me. I thought, this is amazing, because when you signed you up to go to different people's places that had said they have so many beds, so many rooms, to use. And the whole experience was so amazing. The Chicago 7 had permits for everything, every place you were going to march. But we didn't know Chicago, and they only used bullhorns at that time. And so we ended up in an area that wasn't permitted. People were leading us through with bullhorns that were trying to get us to do something illegal, which we didn't understand. And there we were in front of a tank, and we were maced and part of the whole scene. But that whole experience changed our life because, first off, the Chicago 7 were unbelievable people, and the people there were unbelievable people, nuns, rabbis, regular people, students. It was phenomenal. That changed our lives. So we came back and we got into meditation and into the Edgar Cayce work. Somebody handed us a book about Edgar Cayce on the streets of New York City. Somebody else handed us a book about the Maharishi, and the Cayce material, the center that they had, they did their own meditation every Wednesday, and so that's what we went to. And what our destiny came at that time. We totally changed. We totally got onto a path. I was so show business, and Jack was so into the writing, and so that's why we lead meditations all the time that we can, because that's the work that needs to be done, is to get out of the way, go into that silent place. And so that's what we're going to be doing tonight. I'll be doing a call and response, and if you would like a person's name called out and put onto the prayer list, please just put their name on a piece of paper and put it in the prayer box. And while Jack is talking, I will take the name out and put it on the list and call it out. So tonight we're just going to do a simple chant, and I'll sing the line, and you can sing as much as you want. You can sing with me, but I'll always have you repeat after what I'm doing. So. In the temple of silence, 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 in the temple of peace, 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 I will meet you. I will your love, your love, your love, your love will bring me home, will bring me home, will bring me home, will bring me home, in the temple of stillness, 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 in the temple of love, 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 I will know you, I will know you, I will know you, I will know you, your love, your love will bring me home, will bring me home, will bring me home, will bring me in the temple of silence, in the temple of silence, in the temple of peace, in the temple of peace, I will know you, I will know you, in love, in love,
Good evening, everyone. There's a story told about a Native American man whose little son was inquiring about the great battles their people had fought. And the father says to the son, "The great battle is being fought in my heart right now between two wolves. One wolf is mean. The other wolf is good and considerate." And the little boy asks, "Which one will win, Father?" "The one I feed, son. The one I feed will win." And this is an excellent illustration about our spiritual journey, which is really what everyone here in Unity is involved with. And so I will attempt to bring us back to the basic understanding that there is one ultimate and complete yoga. It is the yoga of forgiveness. If we understand and move with the yoga of forgiveness, ultimately we will become emissaries of divine light and living. We will become enlightened beings. We will have gained what it is the masters have been pointing to, speaking about, and writing about down through the ages. So we should give our attention to this yoga of forgiveness. We start, perhaps, with the idea that if someone offends me or attempts to do something unjust in relationship to me and my life, I may have to forgive that person. Well, I do. But immediately the thought is that by forgiving that person, to forgive this very real offense. And that's a fair beginning. And most of us in our lives, prior possibly to even getting involved in the spiritual journey on a serious level, we think in those terms regarding forgiveness. But if we continue in forgiveness, we come to understand that that whole concept of my superiority over someone who is offending me is a limited concept, a limited interpretation of forgiveness, because it doesn't heal the separation in my mind. It doesn't heal the separation in my consciousness, that separation that defines him or her, the offender, as different than me, the one who is offended. So that is a limited interpretation of forgiveness. And too often it simply serves the illusionary interpretation of life that we're born into and raised in. The interpretation that I'm a separate body-mind in a world of separate others, in a world of separate phenomena. And therefore, my personal self-interests must necessarily precede me in every action, in every condition, in every circumstance, which is not going to benefit us on the journey. You see, that whole concept is from an ego-centered perspective, which is our first understanding and interpretation of life and ourselves. We're born into it, we're raised in it, we're educated in it. But it's not going to allow us to find happiness, peace, healing. We're going to have to move beyond that. So, you know, the masters speak about that in relationship to the ego-centered idea of life. This is Eckhart Tolle from his book, Stillness Speaks, page 34. Built into the very structure of the egoic self is a need to oppose, resist, and exclude to maintain the sense of separateness on which its continued survival demands. So there is me against the other, us against them. The ego needs to be in conflict with something or someone. Because the ego, you see, is forever defining itself as superior, defining the personality, the personal self. But in truth, each one of us, while we are different, we're only different in relationship to the beliefs each of us has collected from the beginning of our lives in the body. The collection of beliefs that we have create our own personal point of view. And it's not necessarily the point of view shared by others around me. So we live our lives quite often battling to maintain the illusion that I'm a separate, objective observer. I see things just the way they are. And that is the initial sin, the sin underlying all sins. It is the sin underlying mankind's inhumanity to himself. So we have to transcend that definition of life, that definition of self, that definition of the ego-centered idea of living. And we're in a difficult place because, as I said, not only the major educational systems of the world are based upon the illusion of separation, but even in the Lord's Prayer, when it says, you know, forgive us our debts as we also forgive our debtors, that is an illusionary idea that there's some separate Father somewhere. Our Father who is in heaven. Hallowed be thy name, holy is thy nature. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. But we're speaking to, but forgive us our debts, Father, in heaven. If you don't get anything else out of this talk, and you don't get anything else out of unity, see if you can really grasp this truth. There is no separate judge, no separate Heavenly Father who's going to judge us based on our ability to do what is correct or right or honest or spiritual. Our debts are forgiven the very moment we forgive whatever debts we're holding against others. Because we are one with everything we look upon. So there's no referee. It is a matter of our own understanding, our own willingness to release the limited perception and projections we make as regards life in general. You see, the masters live in a completely different and very real world than those who are still struggling in the illusionary idea of life. And so we have to find our way toward them. And the whole concept involved in transformation is my own transformation, not my getting to a place where I'm going to make others see the light of my objective observations. It's a humbling idea to think I'm not a separate objective observer of things as they are. But that humility is a necessary ingredient. You see, there is no life of happiness, of peace, of healing, of truth, of wisdom. There isn't any until one turns away from the thinking of the world, which is based upon the human intellect is masquerading as God. The human intellect believes itself to be the most intelligent and brightest creation. There is no other, no beyond that. Until life has revealed to us that the human intellect is flawed and we cannot find our way to happiness and peace, truth, insight, love, joy, healing. We can't find our way to the idea that I am capable of defining the right and wrong of life. It's not given to us. Judge not because you haven't got the equipment yet. It is required of us to ultimately become despairing of our abilities to fathom what life requires, that we can figure it out. Oh, our technologies will go on to be amazing, but they will not allow this more refined awareness, which is the good wolf, to speak. To feed the good wolf is to do our spiritual practice. And the beautiful thing about it is that we don't always have to be as vigilant as we do when we start the spiritual journey. When we start the journey, we have to be extremely vigilant about the thoughts we allow ourselves to contemplate and the actions we allow ourselves to take. We have to be vigilant to see the activity of this negative concept, this carping, ego-centered idea of specialness. We have to see it, and then we have to reject it. And that may often mean just being to understand them, to bring something extraordinary to circumstances and relationships. Can you imagine having the ability to bring peace to any type of condition, circumstance, or relationship? To bring peace because you are so filled with the truth of the presence of God in every person, in every place, in every condition. Things that the masters do. This is true healing. So in speaking to that, we have to be aware that the masters down through the ages understood this. Forgiveness takes us to a place of recognizing our interconnectedness with everything and everyone else. Everything and everyone else. So I'll share this with you from it's in the Gospel of Matthew that we receive the insight from the Master who says, you should not be called rabbi or master, for you all have one master. Don't call anyone else your father, for you all have one Father who is in heaven. For you are all brethren. That gives you breath and life and the ability to rise and become the most feared thing in the outer directed world. Gives you the light to allow you to rise into it and become holy, which is to become extraordinary, which is to become a master, an emissary of divine consciousness. So we can begin to release the whole concept that we have been taught to believe in. And a lot of it has to do with New Age, mind over matter. Set your personal intentions. There's nothing wrong with setting your intentions for the goals that you want to achieve. But everything ultimately one day will have to come into a secondary position to the divine, living core nature of us, which is the Christ within. Everything will have to be measured against what would that good wolf do? What does that good wolf want? What is truly right on the highest level of awareness? And so, in doing this, what happens is we start with forgiveness and we work through it and we practice it and we're vigilant not to entertain negative thoughts or negative actions. But what happens is we're beginning to surrender that which has forever blocked us from feeling wholeness, from feeling connected, from feeling beloved and sharing love, which is the illusion of my separateness and specialness and necessity for my personal self-interest to precede me in every relationship, in every condition, in every circumstance. That's the death of our happiness. And it will remain that way until we see it for what it is. So, when we get to this place that we are all brethren, and really begin to feel that truth, not just think it. That's the first part of it. But we will have to get to the place where we feel that truth. What really has happened to the outer directed world as we look upon it and see all the conflicts and madness and insanity that prevail in human experience, what we have lost is the ability to feel for one another. Oh yes, we can feel for ourselves, and all of it goes along with what goes against what I would like to have happen, my happiness, my health, my peace. But can you imagine how magnificent your life will be when this really powerful illusionary self, forever seeking specialness,